Ryan, you can get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Leadership Forum. Today, we are joined by the Honorable Bob Pacheco, former California State Assemblyman, business owner, and currently Walnut Mayor. Mayor Pacheco, thank you for accepting our invitation and joining us this morning. My
My
name,
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
my name is Ryan Melky.
I'm Nicholas Hernandez.
I'm Ashinabaya.
And I'm Connor Fox.
Today, we will be focusing on the Honorable Mayor's lifetime accomplishments, including his law firm, multi-million-dollar business, term in the California State Assembly, and time in the Walnut City Council. Mayor Pacheco, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became such a notable leader in the community?
Well, I'll tell you, it all kind of started from local things. I really was not a person that wanted to be involved in politics. I wasn't in leadership. I was just a regular guy. I had worked my way through in law school and had started my law practice and wasn't doing anything in particular other than just earning a living. Then we had a church that we wanted to start in the city of Walnut, the Catholic Church, and we saw a gentleman wanting to gather signatures, so we helped him with that. Well, one thing led to another. We became part of the leadership trying to establish the church, and once we had built, hired architects and gathered our money to build a church, we had a plan set up. We went to the planning commission of the city and asked them to approve our plans, and they rejected them. Well, that started me on politics because at that point I felt that there was more need to be done. I thought they were ignoring the needs of the community, and so I got involved. So I remember going to the mayor, to the city council, and complaining, and the mayor told me, well, if you really care so much, why don't you get involved? And I said, okay, I will. And I did. So from that point on is the beginning of my political life. And I've been involved in it since then. It's back 1995. So that's the beginning of the politics. As far as being involved in different levels of politics, I have been involved pretty deeply, all the way up to the presidential level. In fact, I was the chairman for President Bush when he ran for re-election. So I was a California chairman for his re-election. So I been involved in a number of different political things. Of course, I was elected to the legislature. That all came from my involvement with the church, believe it or not. When I ran for city council, I was the first Latino to be involved in city politics, first one to be elected to the city council, and that brought the attention to a lot of people. And they came and asked me would I like to run for state assembly. Well, you recall I said I had not been involved in politics at all. So that was a lot for me to take on in a short 2-year period. So I went from city council to state assembly within about 2 or 3 years. Very rapid.
Thank you, Mayor Pacheco. Your story is nothing short of an inspiration for many students. You were able to start an extremely successful manufacturing business based in Walnut. We understand that starting and running one's own business takes much energy and effort. So our question is, how much devotion did you give to the success of your business? And did you experience any failures which you learned from before becoming successful?
Well, you know, one thing that all of you will learn, and if you don't, you should. In order to be successful, you need a good, strong, supportive spouse. And my wife is very, very strong. And with her help, we have been able to build a very successful multi-million-dollar business. She's also a lawyer, went to law school part-time and graduated with very good honors and did well. I was practicing law, and I represented a company that for many years as a banker. I was a banker before became a lawyer. And I got to know this company, and it became available for purchase. And my wife and I invested in it. So we started a business that we had absolutely no knowledge of. But I'll tell you, I'll credit my wife for what she did, because she helped me establish that business with her bright attitude. She was really positive about doing things, and she learned the hard way how to manage a business. So she is now she's the president of the company. I'm the chief financial officer, and we have about 10 employees. But we do a multi-million-dollar business throughout the country, and we transport and import goods all around the country. But as I said, if you learn anything from me, learn this: make sure that you have a very supportive and strong spouse, a smart one that's smarter than you, and that can help you conduct business and be successful. And in fact, in everything I've done, whether it's in politics, whether it's in business, whether it's in law practice, she has been my number one supporter. And without her, I'll tell you, I never would have been able to accomplish anything that I did.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Pacheco. Since you started your own business in manufacturing from scratch, I wanted to ask you what inspired you to make your own business, and what steps did you take to prepare yourself for such a big challenge in your life?
Well, we didn't start it from scratch. It was an existing business that was conducting importing of goods from from Japan, China, and then selling them, distributing them throughout the United States. But it was basically starting our own business from scratch, because you recall, I said we didn't know anything about the business to begin with. And we learned the hard way. We learned how to handle matter, how to handle finances, how to purchase, how to distribute, how to hire employees, how to fire employees. We learned that we had employees that were being deceitful and stealing from us, so we had to fire them. We had to learn the products, what they did, how we had to distribute them. And it was manufacturing is a different kind of concept than being a lawyer. Being a lawyer, I started my own business as well. I was a banker when I was going to law school. And after I finished law school, I went to the bank and I said, look, I've been working for the bank now for a while, and I passed the law exams and passed the state bar, and I want to be a lawyer in the law department. And they said, well, we don't really have any openings for you. And he said, well, okay, I'll wait, but I really want to practice law. I don't want to necessarily just be a banker. And by that time, I was an assistant vice president of the bank, and I had lending authority. So it means I make very large loans and things of that nature. I had to learn very extensive accounting. So I became a pretty in-depth accountant that could analyze financial statements for major companies like Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, all the major companies, GE, and all those companies of that nature. So I was able to analyze the financial statements. And so that was a dual, I think, hat for me, because not only had I learned the law, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I was also knowledgeable in handling the financial affairs of companies and knew how to structure them. And I went back to the law office for the bank and asked them if they would hire me in the law department. And they said, no, we don't have any room for you. Well, I found out later that they only hired lawyers from the major law schools. And I didn't go to a major law school. I went to a part-time law school and went to night school until I finished. It took me from the time I started college till the time I passed the bar examination, 18 years of night school and law and studying. So that when the law department of the bank saw my history, they didn't see a person that was willing to put their head down and work hard and learn how to be what they had to be. They saw that I wasn't a graduate of a major law school. And so they didn't hire me. And I said, okay, then I quit. So I quit and I started my own law firm. I have been practicing law now for 48 years. I have a very, very successful law firm. In fact, I'm pretty much getting ready to retire. But my wife, who is now a lawyer, is continuing on, and she is doing a magnificent job. So I said, make sure you pick your mate very carefully and trust them. Make sure that they're supportive of you in all that you do. And my wife has been very supportive. And so, as a good lawyer that she is now, she and I work very closely together on many legal issues. But so there was two types of businesses that I started. One is a law firm that has now been in place for 48 years and effectively doing so. And another is a manufacturing company that was totally different from what I had learned to do, except that I knew the financial part of it because I'd been managing major companies. So it's a lot of work. You have to put yourself out a lot. You hear the story frequently. I didn't learn just to sign a paycheck on the back of the check. I learned how to sign the front of it as well. And it became very important that as we began and developed our company, that we developed something that was very important: credibility. And a product that we believed in strongly enough to where we guarantee our products for a lifetime. So we sell products of stainless steel hardware of all different types that are used in trucking and truck bodies and all kinds of things of that nature. And we warrant that product for the lifetime of the product. And that means a lot. We have had companies come back to us after having the product in place for a while, and they said that your product's not working. We will replace it for them. That's how much we believe in our products. So those are things that are important. If you're going to start business for yourself, you have to have credibility. You have to back your product, not be afraid to guarantee it, and be honest with your clients and your patients and not your patients, but your clients and your customers. And that has worked very well for us, both in law practice. I have clients who come in to see me and they have problems. I don't like what they've done. I don't believe in them. I don't trust them. So I won't represent them. So having the ability to turn down business just because you don't think they're honest, or because you think they're not doing the right thing, that's important for successful law practice as well. So anyway, that's kind of a short story of how we've done it. But like I said, be sure that you select the right spouse. That's important.
I'm sure building up your manufacturing and law firm business was very tough for you. So, for the question I wanted to ask you was, what were the risks of taking over a business, and how did you turn your business into becoming successful?
Well, taking over a business requires a substantial amount of capital. So when you are an owner of a business, you have to rely on yourself to finance it. I mean, you could go to banks. Um, I had two things going for me. I was a lawyer, and as a lawyer, I had been successful in being able to generate enough money. So we had enough money to be able to successfully invest in the company. And in investing in the company, you provide working capital, and you have to pay for inventory, you have to pay for your employees, and you have to have the money to be able to do that. If you don't have a successfully capitalized company, you will not last very long. So if any of you are deciding that you want to do business, you want to start your own company, I mean, you can start with on a small scale, but whatever you do on a small scale, do it in a way that it's profitable, and do it in a way that's sound financially. In other words, I've seen companies, like I said, as a banker, I've advised companies who began to be successful. But what they did is they outgrew themselves and began to expand too rapidly without having a sound financial base for themselves. So if you want to develop a business and you want to be successful at it, you got to make sure you capitalize what you do, but you also have to make sure that you make a regular profit and then reinvest your profit in your business. So that means if you are not profitable, if you're losing money, as many companies do, many startups don't last long. And the reason they don't last long is because they don't know how to save their money, they don't know how to invest their money, and if they begin to have some success, they expand too quickly. So those are things that I learned both from banking, from being a lawyer, and then from owning my own company, because we invested well over, I think, well over $1 million to make sure it was profitable. Well, now it is a profitable company, and it provides for us and our families, and we're doing very well. But it took a long time. When we had the downturn in the economy, you recall in the 80s, and then we had 9/11 that hit us all badly. Well, our business went from generating $200,000-300,000 a month to about $30,000 a month. Well, you can imagine what that did to us. But we had the law practice that was being successful in spite of the bad economy, which is sometimes that happens when the bad economy, lawyers do better because people get in trouble. So I use the income from the law practice to continue supporting the manufacturing company. So during the time that we lost the sales and we were able to try to start recovering them, we didn't let go a single employee. We kept every one of them. And because of that, our employees are steadfast, loyal to us. And they believe in what we bless you. They believe in what we do, and they believe in the product, and they're honest, and they deal honestly with us. So, whatever you do as an employer, you be honest with your employees, be willing to back your company up with financially as much as you can, and work hard. Nothing is easy. So it doesn't come easy no matter what you try to do. But even as successful as we are, we still have to work hard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, there is no doubt that your business has been very successful and generated a lot of wealth for you, even during bad economic times. So, I wanted to ask you, how did you ensure the business's successful continuation, especially during difficult times like this pandemic, where we were all forced to change our day-to-day lives? And I'm sure this took a big hit on yourself and many of your clients as well.
Yeah, well, it was important. One thing was really critical for us and important to maintain was the quality of our product. So even though we were not making as much money as we wanted to, and even though it was became more expensive for us to be able to stay in business, we still believed that selling a quality product was key to maintaining the success of our business. So we invested in nothing but the highest quality that we could sell to our customers. And our customers then began to believe in us. Uh, we found that at, at times we had people that came and said to our customers, we can sell the same product to you at a cheaper price. And they would go with another customer or another supplier. In a short time, they'd come back to us and say, the product that we've been sold is not holding up well, and or they can't supply us when we need it. And you have been very steadfast in making sure that we were provided supplies and parts and products that we needed when we needed them. And you weren't always the cheapest, but you always gave us the highest quality. So you got to do one thing. You have to believe in your product, sell the highest quality you can, and back it by making sure that you're honest with your customers and don't try to make a quick sale with cheap products. That really won't work in the end. So hold on, my wife gave me a note. It says, oh, she was saying, well, this year, even though in spite of the COVID that's been really impacting us, we have not laid off a single employee, even though we have had to cut back our business, but we allow them to work at home. So now we have our employees working with their computers at home. And because we sell both products over the internet, and then we handle the shipments through suppliers and a lot of internet transactions. When we deal with our suppliers now, we do what you're doing now with us. We do Zoom calls with our suppliers when the product's wrong and not good. It used to be we would make a trip to our suppliers in the East and in the Middle East, Japan or China or Korea, and we'd have to tell them what we needed to do, what was wrong with the product. And that was very expensive to make those travel arrangements. But now with the new Zoom and all the other things that we can do online and videos, we don't have to make those expensive trips over there anymore. Now we just pick up our product and show it to them. This is what's wrong. And then we have our employees who are qualified now, engineers who can design and technically identify the flaws in products. So all those things have to be in-house in order to be successful. And so that's how we've been able to maintain it. So even though we've had a bad year with COVID, we have probably had our most successful year that we've had ever. And that's just because I think people believe in our quality, people believe in what we do, and our customers have not abandoned us. They've stayed with us, even though they're having a hard time as well.
Thank you. So, you worked in the California State Assembly for 12 years to represent the 55th District, which includes Walnut. So our question is, how did you build up connections with your colleagues or constituents, and what advice can you give to students on the importance of networking with others?
Well, I told you my story to begin with. In order to build a base for political run, for public office, you need to develop a base that supports you. Well, my support base was my participation in the Catholic Church and my willingness to put myself out and support that church. By the way, we got our church and we built it the way we wanted to build it. And it's one of the largest churches, Catholic churches in California. Uh, and it's been done all just by hard work, but it's all been done because people stick together. So when I ran for city council, the same people that were supporting me for the church supported me for the city council. When I ran for the state assembly, the people that were supporting me for the city council that were part of my parishioners in the church that I attended also became part of my basic support group for the state assembly. I mean, I had people that would come and work all day. They would work all day long, and after work, come and work at my campaign office. I mean, they were just outstanding. I mean, I couldn't ask for more. They gave of themselves so much, and part of it, I guess, is because they believed in me and believed in what I said and what I did and what I continued to do. And so they felt that I was the right person. So even though I ran a campaign against 6 people that were well known, and one of them was supported by the Republican Party establishment against me, and I'm a Republican, I guess you could tell by now. Um, and even though they were the supported party, I won. And it was because of the hard work of the people that supported me. They worked day and night, stuffing envelopes, making calls, walking the precincts, talking to people. It's all a matter of establishing relationships. When we have a pastor now at our church that believes in a saying that he always says, at the end of the day, whatever you do, it's all about relationships. So you build your relationships as you guys are learning, as you're putting things together, as you're learning about businesses, you've developed a relationship with each other. So when you need each other, you're there to back each other up. And that's the beginning of the relationships that you will develop. So you develop them in your community, go beyond your community, and then go to the state if you're intending to want to go to state politics. So I actually served in the state legislature for 6 years. I was reelected 3 times. And I served in the state legislature and served in very important committees of the legislature. I served in Judiciary Committee, the Budget Committees, the Health Committees. I mean, those are the key committees that handle the major amount of money for the state. And I was selected to serve in those committees. So I worked on those committees. I worked for 6 years. So um, when I first got elected, you recall that the Terminator started running for office. You remember Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he ran for office. He was we were trying to oust Gray Davis. Well, the Terminator invited me to be one of his speakers. So I would give his warm-up speeches before the Terminator came out to speak. I was the one that would warm up the crowds and get them going before he showed up. And of course, when he showed up, everybody went crazy. And so he was very supportive of me when I served in the legislature. When I termed out, you could only serve 3 terms at that time. You serve 3 terms and then you're termed out. He said, well, you're not going to leave yet. I'm going to put you in some other places. So he began to put me in different positions. So I served as a judge for the California Occupational Health and Safety, which OSHA, the Cal OSHA, they call it. So he appointed me as a judge, an appellate judge for Cal OSHA. I served on Cal OSHA for quite a while. Then when Governor Schwarzenegger lost or left office, I then served as a senior advisor to the governor, the next governor. So I was up there for 12 years, but 6 of them were serving in some capacity that the governor appointed me to. So my last position was as a senior advisor to the governor. And then I decided that it was time to leave. And we had a new governor, Governor Brown came back. And so I came back to practice law again.
Mayor Pacheco, running for the state assembly is a very serious undertaking that requires work, dedication, perseverance, and time. What compelled you to run for the California State Assembly and serve the people of the 55th District for so long?
Well, like you recall, I said I had no involvement in politics. In fact, the only reason I ran for city council was because we're trying to build a church, and we got turned down. So when they saw that I won successfully on my first time running for city council, a group of people came to me and said, "We really want you to run for state assembly." Well, sometimes you got to do things at a time when they happen to be right. And at that time, there were some things that happened that probably assisted me in moving forward. But we had a sitting congressman that was out of Diamond Bar, and he got caught up in accepting foreign money for his campaign, and he got convicted. Well, the assemblyman that was working for that district decided to run for Congress to replace the congressman that had been convicted of a crime. So he was elected, and that left an opening in the state assembly. And I had just won the city council seat. So they said, "We want you to run because we think you can win." Well, you recall I said I was not the chosen one. When we had a bunch of other people that were all had been around a long time, they had the political connections, and but they believed in me. And then the people that I had developed as a core group believed in me. But I needed one more thing. I needed a family to believe in me. So I sat my family down. I said, I just got elected to the city council, but these people want me to run for the state legislature. And my family said, no, we don't want you to do that. My daughter in particular, not quite a teen yet. She wanted her daddy to be home. And she said, if you go to Sacramento, you won't be here for me. So they came, I told the people, no, I'm not going to run for the legislature. Well, they came back again. They said, we really want you to run. We think you can win. And I asked my family again, what do you think? Should I run? And my daughter said, no, I don't want my daddy to be gone. So I said no again. Well, they came to me one more time. They said, we really want you to run. So I went back to my family again. I said, they want me to run. And I keep telling them no. My daughter listened very carefully. My wife listened very carefully. My son listened very carefully. None of them really wanted me to be gone. My daughter finally said, okay, you can go, but if I ever need you, you need to come home. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. So anytime my daughter needed me, regardless of what I was doing in the legislature, I would come home for her. And during the time I was in the legislature, my wife would call me sometimes. And my staff knew if my wife called because she needed me for something, they interrupted me no matter what I was doing. And sometimes I would be sitting in committees in the middle of hearings, and my staff would come up to me and pass me a note, said, your wife wants on the phone, she needs you. I would drop whatever I was doing and I go talk to her. And so it became important that not only was I there for constituents, but I had to be there for my family as well. And so there were instances when my daughter really wanted me to be here, like when the first father-daughter dance, and I was in the legislature. And she was going to be really disappointed because I wouldn't be here. Well, I told my bosses up in the legislature, I said, yeah, I don't care what you do. And I don't care if you demote me to whatever you want to demote me to, but I'm going to my daughter's first dance. So I did. And I kept my word, and it was important. So all of you, whatever you do, you decide to go into politics. Remember your family. Remember to be true to yourself. Keep your promises. And never forget who was there for you to begin with.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. So I wanted to ask you a more specific question about your time in the state legislature. So I wanted to ask, considering the partisanship that was going on at the time and still continues today, what were some significant bipartisan bills that you were able to pass or co-author?
Well, one of the things I learned is that if you want to be successful in politics, you have to learn how to work with the other side. And that means you have to make concessions, you have to be able to negotiate, and you have to be willing to concede some of the points that you want to take and listen to the other side, what they want and why they don't think what you're doing is right, and then compromise. I did that and developed a very good relationship with my fellow Democrats who would support me when I wanted to pass legislation. And I wasn't successful every time, But as it turned out, after I left, my staff made a list of legislation that I was able to enact while I was in the legislature. And they said I had the highest number of legislative bills enacted by a Republican of all the Republicans who were there. And that was because I learned how to deal with both sides and how to compromise. And the compromise is important. You got to believe in what you're doing. You don't want to do things that you don't believe in. But a little story I haven't told you about is when I grew up in a little town called Artesia, New Mexico. My parents were farm workers. And we did what farm workers do. We picked crops, we picked cotton, we did pick tomatoes, we picked onions. We worked in the fields. And when I worked in the fields and picked cotton, there were times when I felt that I didn't think the farmer was treating us right. And yet there wasn't anything we could do, because if we decided we were upset, we wouldn't be allowed to work there. And believe me, working in a family that are farm workers, you don't have a lot of money. In fact, you have no money. And everything you make, you earn with your hands. And there were times when I felt that the farmers were not treating us right, but there was nothing we could do. Well, when I was in the legislature, one of the major bills that was carried by Senator Burton, who was the head of the Democrats in the Senate, was called a farm workers arbitration bill. And every Republican was opposed to it, and primarily because Republicans were strongly supported by the farmers, the major farmer co-ops, the grape growers, the bottlers, the people that were in business. And businesses tend to support Republicans. And so they supported me strongly. Well, we debated on the floor because that bill was important to the farm workers, because they had never had the rights to mediate or arbitrate their disputes with the farmers. The bill was debated for 3 days consecutively. Every member of the legislature got up and spoke in favor or in opposition to it. And I listened and listened and listened. On the third day, when the bill was tied, I mean, they could not get it out of the floor because they needed one more vote. And remember, I was holding with the Republican side. After listening to all the stories about farm workers and what they had to put up with and what they did, I remembered something from my own life. That was when I was a farm worker and I was picking cotton. And I thought the farmer was not treating us fairly. There was nothing I could do. But now I had an opportunity. So I picked up my microphone, stood up in front of the entire legislature, because at that time, both the Senate and the Assembly were grouped together in the chamber of the assembly chamber, which is the largest chamber. And because it was a very, very strongly debated bill, very important for Senator Burton, who was the head of the Democrat Party. And I pulled up my microphone and I said, when we are elected, we bring with us many beliefs, many things that we believe in strongly. But the one thing we bring with us is part of our life, who we are. And I said, I've heard the arguments back and forth. And I can tell you that when I was picking cotton, I didn't have any say-so to mediate my disputes. Well, now I have an opportunity. I said it, I am voting for this bill. It was such a tremendous success to pass that bill. The entire building just kind of exploded with applause, and the farm workers were in the back and in the top listening in the gallery. And it was such a fantastic bill that was passed. And I was honored by the Democrats to be the only Republican member ever invited to attend what they call their caucus and to celebrate with them passage of a bill. So you ask, how are you able to pass legislation successfully? Well, you had to be who you were. You had to be able to listen to the other side, and you had to be able to pass what you thought was the very best thing which everybody believed in. And so that's probably why I probably was the most successful. I had another bill that you probably know about because you hear about it very often. I passed a bill, generated a bill to be put forth that required sexual predators and those that have been convicted of sex crimes to be registered, so that especially those that have been found guilty of molesting of children. And I passed a bill that required their names to be disclosed and to be published, so that when a person goes to buy a home, they know if there are convicted child molesters that live in the general area, because they have to register and they have to show where they're living. That became a bill that, because it was so popular, the Democrats took it over and they allowed me to be a co-author. So it is now a state law, and you'll hear about it every once in a while. It is now a state law, and it's part of the laws of California, that when you buy a house, one of the things that has to be disclosed to you, if there are any child molesters, convicted child molesters living in the neighborhood you're going to buy your home. So anyway, so it's a couple of good things that happened.
During your time as state legislator, you served as vice chair of the California Assembly Judiciary and the Health Committee. For my question, what were the different responsibilities that you had compared to your time now as city council?
Well, dealing with city issues is a little different than dealing with them in the legislature. in the legislature, you are very far away from the constituents. I mean, I live primarily most of the week in Sacramento and would come home on the weekends. And my only interaction with the constituents in my district was when I came home on the weekends. And those were usually some kind of event where they wanted me to be a speaker or something like that. In the city council, you're there every day. So when I go to the grocery store, people see me in the grocery store and they stop me and they talk to me. And they call my wife and they say, hey, we want something done. And they know that if my wife talks to me, it'll probably get done. So city politics is very local. You deal with things here because you live here and you're very close to you. And the things that are affecting my family are the things that I deal with primarily on a day-by-day basis. Having been in the legislature is helpful because I can call legislators and ask them for favors, or I can ask them to do something that's needed for our area. And that's not an option that many people have an opportunity to do. So having served in the legislature is helpful, but it's still, like I said, local politics. You have to deal with local issues. And it's a very different thing. But all in all, it's primarily dealing with people issues. So you deal with people issues that involve their life, their family, their home. And you do the same thing in the legislature, but what you do in the legislature, you pass a law that affects the entire state. In the city council, you pass a law that affects the city that you live in. So it's quite a different thing, but it's all, like I said, politics is very local in the city council.
So you have found many ways to improve and give back to the local community, such as the Walnut Valley Educational Foundation. So our question is, how have you found the time to start and manage such large organizations? And what advice can you give to students on how they themselves may impact the community?
Well, when the superintendent of schools for Walnut Unified School District, Dr. Hockwall was superintendent. This school district happens to be one of the lowest funded school districts, and it has to do with the laws that have been passed in the years past. So, and we also have a higher economic populace. So we don't have the problems that some of the other cities have that surround us. So those that have a low economic status in some other cities get a lot of different funding, and they get excess funding, extra funding for pupils that the city, the Walnut district doesn't get. So the superintendent came to me and he said, we need to raise money to help us out. And so I said, well, I guess we can form something. And so as being a lawyer, I created the foundation, the Walnut Valley Educational Foundation. And we started generating money to help the school district. So there are different ways, a lot of different ways that we raise money, but my wife and I have done a lot of things together. And one of them was, we were in the shopping in the grocery store, and we ran into one of the teachers, and she was putting a bunch of stuff into her basket. I said, oh, I see you're putting stuff in your basket for your classroom. And we asked her, does the school district reimburse you for that? And she said, no, I pay for that out of my own money because I want my classroom to look good. I want my students to be successful. So maybe a day later, we were shopping and went to Walmart, and we ran into the same teacher again. And she was doing again the same thing. I said, surely they must be reimbursing you for these expenses. And she said, no, I do it because I believe in what I'm doing. So my wife and I said, we need to raise money for these teachers so they don't have to take money out of their pocket. So we started with one of the initial fundraisers for the Walnut Valley Educational Foundation, what we call the Teddy Bear Tea. And that has been now almost 25 years in operation where we raise money. What we do, out of the money we raise, we give up to $300 per classroom and allow the teacher to use the money for whatever they need for supplies for their classroom. So we've had some very thoughtful ideas by teachers on what they use the money for. They some buy microscopes, some buy cameras, some buy they buy books, they buy all kinds of different things. Anything that's helpful to the students to learn. So we've been able to do it now for 25 years. We've been helping the classroom raising money. And over the years, we've been very successful. In fact, this year we celebrated our 25th year, and we had a celebration gala and recognized 25 the people that are the most influential in helping the Walnut Valley Educational Foundation. My wife Gail and I were recognized for the contributions we've made. So over the years, we've raised well over $3 million that has been used to help the classrooms, the teachers. We give scholarships to students. We give grants to teachers for their classroom. We provide grants to those that work and what they call certificated. That's the teachers, and then we have the other people that work that like janitors and the custodians, people who work in the playgrounds. We give grants to them as well for things that they do, anything at all that's helpful to the teachers. Our motto is children first every day, every time and every day. And so we've been very successful at it. And so we will continue to do it because it's something we believe in. We think education is key to the growth of children, and the more successful they are in education, getting an education, the more successful they will be in life. But anyway, that's the story of the foundation.
Thank you.
But we have a group of people. We have a foundation that's made up of local city officials, some of elected officials, some of them on the school board, some of city council. Some of them are parents, some of them are business people, some of them are educators, different type. We have a very broad spectrum of the community that's represented by our foundation.
Thank you. As the mayor of Walnut, you have been involved and founded many numerous community organizations. The question I would like to ask you is, how do you get the people in Walnut involved in all these organizations?
Well, you just ask. You'll be surprised. You want something to be done, you have to ask people to help you do it. And being involved means being part of the community. some of the things that we've done, I worked with former mayor of Walnut, Dr. Choctaw, and we used to do what we did medical clinics for people in Mexico. We would travel to Mexico with doctors, nurses, and we would provide health care for the people there. And some of those people hadn't seen a doctor ever in their life. And that was by, community support. But my wife passed me a note. She says, and she always said, this is her way of supporting me always. She says, people follow good leaders. And so you can see a little note she passed me. But it's really true. People follow people, but they follow people that are good leaders. So if you're a good leader and you believe in what you do and the things that you do are right, people will follow you. People will support you. People will work with you. They'll do what needs to be done. Right now, we're working on a little project. As you know, the African American community has had some bad times, and they have not been supported in some cases, and the history of slavery is not good. And this coming month, February, is Black History Month. And so we're going to be recognizing things that the Black community does in our community. But it wasn't just me. I reached out to some folks in the community. Next thing I know, I have this committee of fellow citizens. Some are educators, some are business people, some are lawyers. They all want to be part of it. And they're all part of the African American community. So what we're going to do is put together a program that will be presented throughout the month of February, recognizing the achievements of the African American community, and particularly those that have served in our community as well. But it all part of the question that you asked me. That is, people follow people. So we have been successful in the things that we've done, the different events and charities that we've created has been because people believe in what I do and what I want to do, and they're good things. So if you remember that, if anything you do is remember that, that people will follow people, people will follow good leaders.
Thank you, Mayor. So, during your time on the City Council, you have had to work with many people. Some of those people, despite having the same political affiliation, still had disagreements with you, especially since there are only 5 people on the council as opposed to 80 people in the assembly where you previously worked. So, as a revered member of the community, how did you work with fellow City Council members to come to compromises and make decisions on a citywide level?
What's really not different than working in the legislature, because we have some members of our city council who are Democrats, and I have some that are Republicans. It doesn't have anything to do with our political leanings. It has to do with what's right for the community. And so when we talk about things that need to be done, we compromise on what we believe in if we think compromise is the best way of getting a result. On the other hand, if we strongly believe in something, you strongly support it and you continue to support it and try to convince others to follow your lead. So there have been times when the times that I've been serving in the city council where the other council members didn't quite believe that what I was suggesting was the right thing. So it was my responsibility to convince them. And I didn't convince them by bullying them, but I convinced them with reason. And I am one that likes to do my research. So when I present something to the city council and it's a disputed item, it's presented only after I have done extensive research and have presented what I think are the best points and why that particular measure needs to be passed. So whatever you do, and as you're arguing the merits of anything you want to support, make sure you do your research before you do anything, because there's nothing worse than saying something that's wrong and having somebody point out to you, whoops, what you said was wrong. and that's not very convincing.
Thank you for that, Mayor. As for the last question, I wanted to say, being in the council, you have surely dealt with things from criticism to serious citywide issues. So I wanted to ask, how would you and the council tackle an issue, and how would you get the citizens to support the council's decisions and your position in it?
Well, people are, I mean, we have all different kinds of beliefs in the city. You have some that don't want things to happen. There are those that believe things should happen. There are some that believe some things should never change. And then there are those that believe that change is necessary. So these types of issues are like that. When you have something come before us, for example, let's say we have a housing development. We will have a bunch of people come out and say, we don't want houses to be built. We like the rural atmosphere. We want to see, as you know, Walnut is known for its rural type of atmosphere. We have people that ride horses on trails that we have built throughout the city. So the city has been known for a long time as being very rural, very down to earth, not very cityfied. So it's not what we don't believe it's going to be a major city in any way in how we do things. So for example, we have very few commercial developments in our city, primarily residences. And our residences that we develop, they all have to have and the newer developments, the older ones, they had smaller lots, but now the lots that we have on the houses are very large. So they're very, country type homes and very expensive homes. And part of that has helped to maintain the quality of living in Walnut. So we have, you've heard of San Marino, right? A very expensive, very exclusive part of the area near Pasadena. And that's known for exclusivity, and it's very expensive homes. Well, we now have in the city of Walnut more higher priced homes on the average than San Marino does. And part of that is because of the quality of the homes that we maintain. And part of it has to do with the city fathers and how they envision the city developing. And so when we see other cities being commercialized, you won't see that in Walnut. And when you see other cities having potholes in their streets and and very poorly maintained neighborhoods. You won't see that in Walnut. We have really nicely paved streets. We have well-maintained houses. We have people that care about living here. And so we try to maintain that atmosphere in our city. So as we do things for our city, we keep that in mind almost everything we do. How do we maintain the quality of the living in Walnut? And because we're very proud of our school district, it is one of the top school districts in the state of California, and in fact, in the country. And that's because the people here care about the quality of our education for our students. And which is another reason why my wife and I are strong supporters of education and why we do the fundraising that we do. So it all goes hand in hand. You know, you believe in what you do, and then you go forward and do the things that support the things you believe in. So that all kind of goes hand in hand. I think you see a little string going between everything that I've done in the past and what I'm doing today. It's all tied in together.
And now that concludes the meeting. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mayor Pacheco.